placing value on your life is a self-determined equation. We have to make sure individually we define our purpose, success, and depiction of prosperity. The great thing about life is that description is different for all of us. And the answers to the test of consequence are up to all of us to write. They all have an individual fabric, and our goals have a way of defining our picture of greatness. For Nathaniel Turner, he's committed to living a life with joy, purpose, and helping to serve others and ensuring they know that their life has intrinsic value which is worth celebration. Turner is the author of multiple books, including the record-breaking and groundbreaking Raising Supaman. His books, videos, speeches, and training programs have left an indelible mark of difference on organizations all throughout the country. Turner's passion and purpose in life is intentional to make sure that his son lives an astute life. In fact, the training program which he offers today was intentionally designed backwards with his son in mind. Turner wants to make sure that we all live socially conscious lives and to be 1% better than the day we were before. Turner joined me this week to talk about leveling up at work, at home, and in your personal space as well. It was an astute conversation of great consequence, one in which I am now pleased to share with all of you. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. To welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm excited to talk to you this morning all about life and career potential. Great to be with you this morning, and happy Thursday to you, buddy.
Same to you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Now, Nathaniel, I know you're all about helping people sort of define their purpose and living with joy in life, my friend. So tell me about your life mission and why it's so important to you.
Well, we only get one life, so I feel like we should do the most we can with the time that we're gifted. I don't think time belongs to us. I think time belongs to the source, to the divine, or the creator, whatever term you might use. And we're just vessels, and our goal is to, or should be, to make life better, not just for us, but for everybody we come in contact with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also curious to ask you, Nathaniel, your definition of what it means to be fully included in life when your value system is honored and sort of placed in higher esteem. What does it mean to you to have full societal inclusion in life?
For me to be included fully in society, or for me to take society into full inclusion in my life?
We'll go with both ends of that question. You can take whichever end you want first.
Yeah, I don't think none of us are islands unto ourselves. And because we're not, we're all sort of, to borrow from Mufasa and the Lion King, we're all part of the great circle of life. So we all have a responsibility to other people in the same way that other people have a responsibility to us. And I can only do the best I can. And you know, there's a statement about control what you control. So in life every day, I try to control those things I can control to be the best version of me possible. And I do
Yeah,
that not just for me. I do that because I think that's what the rent I pay for having a chance to exist on the planet.
yeah, and just building on that, what do you think it means to sort of adopt and maximize your heartbeat in life? And what I mean by that is, what do you think it means to create and follow a passion? Because Nathaniel, I think it's always important to celebrate diversity of thought and opinion in life, and the only way you can have diversity of thought is by having an opinion. So, what, in your judgment, does it mean to maximize the heartbeat of life?
What does it mean to maximize the heartbeat of life? Good question. A question I guess I've never really given a thought to in that context. But so if I think about a heartbeat, right, a heartbeat because of something outside of my control, and so I don't the life that I have, I don't think it belongs to me. And so my responsibility for all the time that my heart beat is to do something that shows that I was grateful and appreciative for the time that I have. And I think the only way to do that is to do something for somebody else and to perhaps help and be a benefit to as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nathaniel, I know you're an accomplished writer. You've written a few books, and they all have to do with sort of leveling up in the game of life. So tell me about your passion for writing and why it's important to you, and a little bit about the books that you've written as well.
Sure. I am. I don't know if I'm passionate about writing as much as I'm passionate about making sure that when my time is up on this planet, I do something that matters. So writing is a tool to do that. I also enjoy speaking, which is why I'm here with you today. I've written 5 books now. We're working on the 6th book. All of the things that I write, I think, essentially come back to one word, which is who, which is, I think, the most important word on the planet, um, which is what our obituary will say, is what our eulogy will tell. It's what the last words that might appear on our tombstone or urn or whatever, who we were while we were here on this planet. And I think the best way to answer my who is to know that I helped, that I served, and I made sure other people knew that they're alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I'm also wondering your thoughts on how we bridge sort of the societal gap of understanding. And what I mean by that is when you turn on the news or TV today, it's hard to see the art of compromise anymore. I think that we've become so territorial in our decision making process or our stance in life. So I'm curious to ask you, how do you think can return to the art of compromise where we may not necessarily agree with everyone, but we can at least respect their point of view and hopefully grow from their understanding as well. So, how do you think we can get back to the art of compromise?
So, excellent question. So I'm sure you've heard of the 10,000 hour rule, the rule of deliberate practice. And so
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question, first, I would say that the reason we don't compromise is because we're now experts in not compromise. So we've all spent 10,000 hours doing the opposite of compromise. So how do we get to that place? Well, we'd have to study, we'd have to deliberately work on compromise. And we'd have to do that for 10,000 hours. That's what those of us who are experts in that. But if we think about the future generations, perhaps what we can do with them is start to teach them from birth what it means to compromise. And I guess what you're saying by compromise is a form of civility. I think when I think of compromise, I think we lack an ability to be civil. We can't have civil discourse. We can't have civil interactions. Everything has to be very adversarial, and adversarial in a sense that we are essentially going to battle with one another over sometimes the smallest things. So I would say with children, for example, that we should be raising children to be good citizens. And to me, good citizens would include being civil. And for the rest of us, we have a lot of work to do. And we have to first decide that we do want to compromise and then work on the skills and tools to make us more civil with one another.
Yeah, and Nathaniel, I know that you've designed what you're calling the life template, and you designed it for your child, and you say you successfully designed your child's life backwards. So tell me all about it and the life template and what it's all about, buddy.
Yeah. So the life template is in some ways, Kevin, what you just asked about how to compromise and how to be civil. There's three elements to the life template. The first element is to be intellectually ambitious, which would include, doing well with grades and test scores, but also thinking critically and thinking critically, and oftentimes thinking from the Socratic method. The second element is to be culturally and globally competent, which again speaks to your issue about compromising and being civil. The more we know about other people, the more we understand the connections between other people, other cultures, the better we can be civil and find a place where we can all sort of come together. And the last element, or the third element, is humanitarian driven, and the goal there is, of course, to be focused on what's good for humanity and not just for the greater good. That is essentially the life template, and then that's the system we use for everything for our son's life. He's now 27, but everything for his life, beginning from conception in 1994 to today.
Absolutely. And Nathaniel, I know that you teach businesses and business schools and nonprofits, and your mission behind that is to help them achieve any goal or objective through backwards design, my friend. So tell me about your view of business today and how you really view running and operating a successful business today.
Really well. So one of the things I do with businesses is that I first start with looking at a business's mission or vision statement. And what I'm most curious about, number one, is how many people who are employed at that company know what the mission and vision statements are. And then secondly, I'm curious about how many people are living while they're working that same mission and vision statement. And it feels like so many corporations today have these wonderful documents, but very few people are living those. And so the challenge is to get employees to be able to buy into the mission and vision statement so that the companies can be true to what they say they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Nathaniel, to that point, but I'll share just a quick story about myself. So anyone that listens and watches this podcast knows that I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. It's the most severe form of cerebral palsy. It simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally, but I've dedicated my adult life outside of hosting this podcast to help organizations really infuse the hiring of folks with disabilities into the workforce. And I tell them all the time that it's a competitive advantage to hire folks with disabilities. So tell me about your view on that subject and how we can do it more inclusively as well.
About hiring folks with quote unquote disability?
That's correct, yeah.
So Kevin, I probably can't speak to it as well as you can. I will say that we all have a disability. So sometimes the disability, as you mentioned, shows up physically, but sometimes our disability is the disability of our thoughts. Sometimes the disability is the disability of our hearts and our minds and our spirits. So we all have a disability. None of us are complete or perfect. So I think to your point about diversity earlier, is that the more people we can have who provide a different lens, the better we all can function and work together. If I'm only ever looking at things from the lens of supposedly a person who exists without any physical disability or limitations, then I'm only seeing the world from one lens, and that's an incomplete way of looking at the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And a need for when we talk about the workplace and avoiding the pitfalls and the excuses in life that allow us to advance forward. Because you know what? I look at excuses, Nathaniel, as a deterrent or artificial deterrents to progress. So how can we avoid the pitfalls in life in terms of excuses, which really limit our ability to advance forward? How do you think we can avoid the pitfalls in life?
Well, I don't think we can avoid pitfalls. I think pitfalls are going to show up. But the question is whether or not when we get to a pitfall, but how do we get out of the pitfall? I think, Kevin, that life is very much like a long journey with a series of peaks and a series of valleys. And sometimes you're going to climb to the peak, and then when you're at the peak, there's only one way to go. If you want to get to the next peak, you have to climb down off the peak you're on and go down and start all over. And sometimes you're in a valley and you've got to figure out how to get out the valley to climb up. So it feels like that's how life is. But our challenge is to figure out how to continue to move forward no matter where we are. You can't stay at the peak. You got to come down, and you can't stay in the valley. You got to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just building on that point, Nathaniel, I'm also curious to ask you how we can intersect or interconnect our passion and purpose, and how can that provide us sort of strength in life to endure and to reach prosperity as well?
I think you've got to do something, Kevin, that's bigger than you. I think we can look at every year when we all make New Year's resolutions. What I believe that by the first 28 days, the majority of people who've made New Year's resolutions have quit doing those things that they've resolved to do. And I think the reason is because we don't really care as much about ourselves as we say we do. But if someone that we love had a problem, we're more likely to make sure that person is restored to full health or has the kinds of success we want them for, like with a parent and a child. But parents are much likely more to work very difficult, they're more likely to work through difficulties and challenges to make sure that their children have the life that they kind of want them to live than they are to say, for example, quit smoking or quit drinking. So I think the goal is to find something bigger than yourself, because generally that helps you to stay on task and achieve your goal.
Yeah, and to that point, Nathaniel, I'm also wondering your perspective on how we effectively think outside of the box in terms of solving life problems or coming up with solutions to prosperity. So, in your view, what does it mean to effectively think outside of the box?
Well, I think outside the box means not to necessarily do what everybody else is doing. But the biggest part of it is thinking outside the box is to realize what your own vision is for your life. I don't think your vision for your life is the same as my vision for my life. Now, you and I both might want to prosper, but what prosperity looks like for you and what prosperity looks like for me might be very different. And that's part of the thinking outside the box, which is to not get trapped by what everybody else says prosperity is, or not to get trapped by what everyone else says, for example, wealth and privilege are, or what it means to be wealthy, or what it means to be in excellent health. We all have to determine what that is, what it looks like for us, so that we move forward towards that goal or objective.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nathaniel, I quickly want to ask you about raising children today and the societal pressures that they're under to succeed, and uh, uh, along with parents too, because I'm 34 now, and raising kids when I was younger isn't the same as it was when I was a little guy. So when you look at raising children today, how has that changed? And what would be your message to parents about really helping their kids maximize their fullest level of potential?
Sure. Hey, so two things I would say with parents. Number one, I would ask parents if they know who they are first. I think too infrequently we go about creating a life without giving any thought to who we are. I think that is critical. everyone says, for example, new parents typically say there is no manual for being a parent. And I would say, well, before you get started, then create a manual for the life that you want your child to have. Because I just think that that's irresponsible for us to say that something doesn't exist. We know that raising another human is perhaps the most important thing, most important job any of us will have, and yet we're willing to go into that job without any directions. So that would be the thing I would say to parents: find out who you are first, and then make sure you have a manual for what it is you want for your child when they are becoming an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nathaniel, I'm fascinated to ask you your thoughts on how do you think hope and resilience are interconnected?
Hey, the great Dr. Cornell West, I heard him once say that hope is fine, but what's more important is to be a hope. And I could not agree more. I think we can talk about being hopeful, but I think the better thing is to be a hope for someone else. And I think when you're doing that, when you're living your life in such a way that when people see you, they have hope. When people see you, they're encouraged. I think you are more likely to be hopeful, and you are more likely to be encouraged. Again, that's that whole circle of life sort of thing where life is not just about me. Life is about Kevin. I meet Kevin today, and if Kevin is having a down day, the only thing I could do for Kevin is to be hopeful, is to be encouraging. And if Kevin is talking to me and he sees that I'm down, the thing Kevin could do for me is to be hopeful and to be encouraging. And hopefully it's infectious like a disease, and we pass it along, and we all can be more hopeful, and we can all be more encouraging. And to your earlier point, we can all live in a way where there's more compromise and more stability.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nathaniel, I'm wondering your perspective on the most defining moment of your life so far, and if you had to classify your defining moment of life, I'm wondering what that would be for you.
Wow. The most defining moment of my life. The reason I'm here with you today is because I have a child. So I would say that is a defining moment. But then I would say, well, I have a child because I met a woman who decided to marry me and have a child with me. And so, you could trace it back to a series of other events. But I would say the most defining moment is perhaps being a father. And that is why I'm here. So that child later on told me that I should do more of my life and I should share with other people what I'd share with him. And that's why I'm here with you today.
Absolutely, Nathaniel. It's the most important job you'll ever have, being a dad, right?
That is the most important job, absolutely.
Absolutely. And Nathaniel, my final question for you this morning has to do with legacy, my friend. And when you look at your life, how do you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined?
I just want my life to be defined this way, that Nate Turner was a guy who helped, served, and made sure other people knew their lives mattered. And that when my time is up, I hope to have left the planet better than it was when I arrived. That's it.
It's simple and profound, but an extremely ambitious goal to have for sure. And Nathaniel, I want to know finally, if you can tell me if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You can reach out to me on the website, which is NathanielATurner.com. So it's NathanielATurner.com.
Fantastic. Well, Nathaniel, I want to thank you for the work you do in helping people maximize their life potential, and for sharing part of your story with me this morning. And I particularly want to thank you for joining me this week because, as I mentioned at the outset of our conversation before we started recording today, we are celebrating our 700th episode this week for the program. So I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this morning and for helping me celebrate the milestone. It's most appreciated.
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you, and congratulations, and best of luck moving forward. And I look forward to hearing about the next 700 episodes.
Well, it's one at a time, right?
Yes, it is.
Slow and steady wins the race. Absolutely.
That's right.